Hey everybody, Josh here, Canadian lawyer and CEO at Visto, and we are going to continue the journey as promised. I want to continue to share what we're doing as we continue to learn and build out this new AI product. Now, what you're looking at here is your feedback that I'm going to review, obviously confidentially, about the recent poll. If you're watching this video, it's probably because you're either on our email list or filled out the poll, or you're just following our journey in general, which I really appreciate. So what I want to do quickly in this video is review some of these responses and some of the feedback, and then what we're doing with it and kind of where we're going to go next. So number one, as you can see here, so 57 responses, really excited about this. So thank you all for number one, taking the time to fill out the form. Maybe you sent it to some friends, maybe you sent it to some colleagues. Wanted to just give you a quick thank you. This is really helpful, right? As you're going to see. So first question, I'm just going to jump right in. Would you be comfortable using an AI agent to handle client intake and communication? So for example, gathering their financial disclosure documents, important dates, series of events, etc. No personal information will be shared with external tools. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. And this was I was a little bit surprised by this. So I'll give you a little bit of my thinking. I thought more lawyers were going to be skeptical with like trusting AI. Now, I think this part is really important, right? The fact that what we're thinking of doing is using an open sourced LLM that we control 100%, so that we're not actually sharing any of this personal information with a big tech company, right? Like an OpenAI or a Google or a Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this part is really important. And because we're in the legal industry, we're always trying to prioritize this, right? Privacy, confidentiality, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, what we see here is 60%, 59.6%, said maybe, but I need more information. 29.8% said definitely. And then 8.8% said I'm not sure. And it looks like only one person, whoever you are out there, no, I'm just kidding, 1.8% said not interested. So this is amazing in my opinion, because part of why we asked this question is to figure out how interested and willing are lawyers even to use AI in general and trust it. And what this is telling me is that if you take 60 plus 30, that equals 90. About 90% of you are either definitely interested or might be, but you just need a little bit more information. So I see this as extremely positive, and we're going to keep running with this, especially making sure to try and protect privacy, security, information as much as possible. So that's a really great first sign. Second question. Which court forms would be most helpful if we could automate gathering client information and filling them out for you? So the leader of the pack here with 93% is, so 93% of you, aka 53 of you, said financial disclosure forms. So 13, 13.1, 13.1a. That is, I think, pretty predictable, right? Those are such a pain. It's a lot of information to gather. It can be confusing for clients. So that sounds about right. Second most at 68% are affidavits 35.1 and 35.1a. In third place is the pleadings forms, so Form 8, Form 10, Form 15. And then lastly, Form 4 notice of change in rep, which is 47%. I think this makes a lot of sense, right? It kind of scales down based on how much information you need, right? So financial disclosure forms, you need a lot of numbers mostly, and it's kind of confusing and a pain to clients. Affidavits, I'm kind of surprised that pleadings weren't maybe closer to or ahead of the affidavits, but I guess the affidavits have a little bit more nuanced, typed out questions, which can be a pain. So this is interesting to hear. And then we got a bunch of others, which is really helpful. So for example, I'll just show you a few of them. Statement of income, debts, liabilities, etc. for a marriage contract or a cohab agreement. Document brief with index for non-litigation files, so similar to a 13A. Using, to move my camera's in the way here, I can't read this. Using AI to scrub confidential information from bank statements would be amazing too. Yes, awesome. So that's really helpful feedback. Draft orders in accordance to minutes of settlement or an endorsement. This could be interesting. Like maybe you can feed it minutes of settlements and it auto drafts an order. I think that's something that AI could definitely handle pretty well. Form 14A, 14B, 25 case conference and settlement conference briefs. Makes sense. None of those, they all require consideration of what information should go in one spot. Okay. I get, so these are all confidential, right? I don't know who submitted this. If you're able to expand on what you would be interested in, that'd be helpful. Net worth summary for marriage contracts. So that's come up, I think, twice now. The net worth, income, debts, liabilities for marriage contracts, affidavit of service, Form 6s. Okay. So that's really helpful and really interesting as well, especially some of these custom suggestions. The next question is, would you use an intake tool like this even if it did not integrate with platforms like DivorceMate, i.e. you'd have to copy and paste the info in, right? And we're exploring this because some platforms make it easy, some platforms make it hard to integrate with, so we're trying to gauge that as well. And so what we see here, 52.6% said, I'm not sure, I'd need to try it first, which makes sense, kind of need a little bit more information. 26% said, yes, saving time on client intake is worth it either way. So where we're getting at here is that right now, you're probably intaking this information manually and then manually copy and pasting it into DivorceMate anyways. So if we could automate the first part of the intake, would you still be willing to copy and paste it into DivorceMate because we saved you so much time on the intake? And so what we're seeing here is, again, 52% saying not sure, need to see it first. That makes sense. 26% says yes, saving time on client intake is worth it either way. 19.3% saying no, it would have to be able to populate that information into other platforms like DivorceMate. So that makes sense. Still, the majority are kind of like on the positive side, right? More people said yes than no. So 26 to 19, with the majority saying not sure, I need to try it first. So that makes a lot of sense. If we integrated our tool with something like DivorceMate, would you be comfortable sharing your login information through the tool? All information is secure and encrypted. So we don't mean share your information with us so we can go log in for fun, right? We would never do that. What we mean is if you provide your information, then the system can automatically do the integrate and like the copy paste for you, right? So just to clarify. The majority here, 49.1%, said yes. So that's great news, especially if we are able to do some sort of an integration like that. 42% saying not sure, need more information. Makes sense. So we're getting a lot of, definitely the majority is not sure or maybe, which makes sense. That's usually the case in things like this. But where was I? 42% saying not sure, 7% saying no, and 1% saying with whom, a client. Oh, this must have been an other answer. So that's helpful. Again, still with the majority saying either yes or maybe, the vast majority in this case. So that's helpful and kind of gives us an idea of whether it's worth trying to build that or not. The last question, if you're a DivorceMate user, which version do you use the most? This might be interesting to some of you just to kind of know who's using what. So 50% of you are using DivorceMate Cloud. 29 of you, aka 50.9%. 26% using DM Desktop. 14%, so 8 of you don't use DivorceMate. That's super interesting, and I'd love to know kind of like, what are you using otherwise? Are you using Divorce Path? Are you using something else? Or are you just kind of doing most of it manually? 7%, so 4 of you are using the DM plus Leap integration. And then there's 1 of you who says, I have some things about the DivorceMate Cloud and miss things about DivorceMate Desktop, but love some things about DM Cloud, right? So that, and that's kind of what I hear is like, some people love this part of the cloud, but this part of the desktop. And it sounds like if they could like mush together the positives into one, that would be great. But yeah, so majority here using DivorceMate in the cloud is the summary. So anyways, those are the questions. I'm obviously not going to share anything else because the last 2 questions were sharing your email if you want to be added to our email list, and then if you have any other specific feedback. And so I'll review that with Alex and kind of take it from there. So yeah, hopefully you kind of find some of this information useful. What we're going to do is take this, digest it a little bit further, and start mapping out the kind of MVP, the first version, the minimum viable product that we want to start working on. And I'll let you know once we have some more of that planned. We've also spent some time talking to an AI expert to really help us understand what is the best way to approach all this? What's the most secure way to do it, right? So for example, as I mentioned earlier, using something like an open source LLM where we control the data and the database and the storage. So we're not actually sharing any of this information with the big tech companies. Something like washing data. So for example, maybe your client types in an answer. There's technology out there that will basically anonymize the data when it sends it through the AI and then de-anonymize it as it goes into the final solution, right? So imagine your client saying, "Hi, my name is John Michael Smith." Before that information is sent to the AI LLM, it gets anonymized. So it doesn't say John Michael Smith, so that the AI doesn't get anything too personal or too sensitive. And then it gets turned back into John Michael Smith when filling out forms or being saved in the database and stuff like that. So the reason why I mentioned this is there are ways to kind of wash data to make it anonymous when it's being passed through AI, but then we can shift it back for the purposes of filling out forms and stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I will keep you posted. I'll continue. What I'm probably going to do is send 1 or 2 of these videos a month. So maybe every like 2 weeks. I don't want to bombard you, but it also seems like there's enough of you that are super interested in kind of following along really step by step. So every couple of weeks, I'll send you an update video like this. If you're not already, make sure you're on our email list, because every time I update a new video, I will send an email to the list with a link to the video. So if you're not already on our email list, let me know, reach out or comment on the video, or you can send me a personal email, josh@visto.ai anytime. I read every email and respond to them as well, assuming that they require a response. So if you want to keep following along, make sure to do that. If you filled out this form, again, we really appreciate it. And thanks very much for watching. And we'll hopefully see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.